chat, some of the people might be removed, and you people can rejoin back. Okay, let us take up the topics which are left out, which were left in the third unit, that is the Ajax as well as Python. We will first cover up the Ajax part in today's class. Now let me just start the presentation. Where is it? In the meantime, you people can put up your roll numbers in the chat box. Mr. Abrar, roll number 39, can you please put up your attendance once again, because recording started later, and by the time you had already put up, so it will not come in chat. Just kindly put your roll number once again. Where were we? We will cover in this tutorial. Now I'm presenting. We will start with the introduction to Ajax. In this tutorial, we will cover Introduction to Ajax. Ajax is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Ajax is used to transform traditional web application into responsive web applications, which has several benefits. As Ajax comes with benefits, it also has its own challenges. The first challenge is the programming complexity. To write an Ajax program, we need to integrate JavaScript, then create an Ajax object, write function expression in JavaScript, and then handle the data. We also have network concerns as well as user experience. Designing a web page in Ajax should also be considered as a challenge. Let us see how traditional web application works. We have a client and a server. Client sends the request, server responds back with the full Okay, good morning, everyone. Let us start with the introduction to Ajax. Now, the very first thing is Ajax. The full form is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So A is for asynchronous. Please remember, it is not synchronous, it is asynchronous. The benefits and all we will talk later. And with an example, we will see how what asynchronous is and what happens when the request is sent and the response is received. So it is basically asynchronous JavaScript. J is for JavaScript and XML, X is for XML part. Now this Ajax has, it is what you call developed as a new technology to replace or to what you call to take the place of the traditional web applications into responsive. To convert that into a responsive web applications. Now, responsive in the sense as the need base, as the data need base, then depending on the need, the data will be sent as the reply or as a response to the client or or the user. Now, developing asynchronous JavaScript and XML or Ajax is not easy. The very first thing, it has its own programming complexity. That is the request we try to send to the server. That request has to be processed properly and then has to be returned back to the user. Now, there are certain network issues as well. These network challenges are that only a part of the request has to be sent back. Though using Ajax, we have a network performance. So concerns or network challenges would be much rather ignorable than the network optimization what we have when we use Ajax or asynchronous JavaScript. Then it is the user experience. That is, let us take an example. Suppose in an HTML page, you have a list box for countries. Now assume there are 250 countries. And below that, once a country's below the country's list box, you have another list box, let us say states. Now, out of the, what should be the content of those states? States of all 250 countries, that will populate the list box so much that user himself will be confused in what to do or how to select which state to select. So our purpose of designing this web page would be when the user selects initially, the state's list box will be empty. In the sense, it will not contain any items. But once the user selects the country, for example, if a user selects what you call India, only then the second list box, which is a state's list box, should get populated with the items representing 36 states, that is including union territories. Now, a same user, if he changes the selection from India to if he changes to US, then the list box should now remove all the elements which it had, and then it should populate with the what do you call 52 different states what US has. So that is what you call one of the challenges that we have to take care, that is of the user experience. So this is a suitable example with respect to when we talk about the user experience. And then obviously, when user has to select something, we have covered this part, that is the design consideration. That is how a web page has to be designed. I mean, the best, the suitable example was having drop-down boxes of a country, of a, what do you call, state, as well as district, if you like. Then now let us try to see how traditional web application works. One side you have a client and the other side you have a server. A client sends a request to the server. And remember, this is not Ajax part. This is how traditional web application works. When client sends a request to the server responds back with the full page, a full HTML page. Now, again, a client sends a request. The server responds back with again the full HTML page. Now, what was the second request about? In this case, let us take an example of what do we call the best example would be cricket scores. A cricket match is going on, and assume that we have a web application which displays the cricket scores or the IPL scores. Assume that. Now, the first request was for the for some match. A response was a full page with the total score or current score right now. And then apart from that, you assume that we also have the scorecard with the batsman who has already scored some runs and are out, and then the currently playing two batsmen. Now, second request also. The second request was, after some times, we want to know the current, what is the change score. So when the request was sent by the client or by the web browser, again, what happens is the response we got was the full page, the complete page loaded again. What was loading the complete page necessary? Because some of the items of the data on that page, a web page which shows the cricket match scores, was not updated. For example, the batsmen who are already out, their score doesn't get updated. The only batsmen who's currently playing, the two batsmen, only their scores get updated, as well as the total score gets updated. So there was no need. I mean, in traditional application, what happens? The entire page is sent back. So this creates several network issues. Or what we can say is this, the network is overloaded with the data which the client already has. So this is how a traditional web application works. That is, every time a request is sent, a full page is sent back as the response. So again, once it is sent, request is sent for multiple requests, you get the full page as the response. Now, traditional web application, simpler to implement. That is, whatever is the database, you just retrieve it and throw it back as the full page. But the disadvantage is that Since the entire data has to be sent back, that means the web pages take time to load. That is, they are slow. Then retransmitting data again to present the page. Obviously, this will you're trying to transmit redundant data. And complete web page is loaded again. That is why it is slow. Now let us try to talk about how Ajax web application works. Again, we have the same client and a server. The first time request is sent to the server, a full page is loaded. Remember, this is the first time. The client doesn't have any data. So the full page is loaded. The second time the request is sent, only a part of the page is loaded or sent back as a response. So that is what we were talking about. The example of what do we call what was that? The cricket match. So only a part, the rest of the page doesn't get refreshed. Only a part, that is the current score, gets refreshed. Then the next time again a request is sent, only a part of the or a partial page is sent back, or a part of the data is sent back. And this only refreshes the partial page. So what happens is, when we are trying to send request, we are trying to send request only to refresh a part of a web page, not the whole content. So this has several benefits. Now, it is not, the request, whatever is sent from the client and all, it all happens behind the scene, and user will not be getting involved in it will be seamless for the user. The communication will be seamless for the user. User think that the entire page has loaded, but it is not the case. It is seamless communication between the client and the server with respect to Ajax communication. Then server just fetches a data which is needed to update the page, or only the part of the data is fetched from the server. And remember this, we talked about seamless. That is, this process is asynchronous. So what happens is, there might be some other data getting loaded already. With this, the current request can also load. So multiple requests will not be synchronous, that once the first request gets completed, only then the second request will work. It's not that. It is asynchronous. Every request will be handled, or the response for every request is independent of the other. So it's an asynchronous communication. Now, obviously, only a relevant part or portion of the web page is refreshed, because we are asking for the request is only to update the partial page. Now, let us talk about how this Ajax, how do we implement Ajax? Now, without JavaScript, we cannot do anything with Ajax. Ajax itself is JavaScript itself is a part of Ajax. So the communication, that is request and response, whatever we send, it is through JavaScript. Now remember, in a HTML, the request you try to send is using the form. You create a form with username, password, so and so. You have a submit button. When you click a submit button, the data is transmitted to the server, or to the resource, which is which you have specified in the actions attribute of the form tag. But here Ajax implement is not done through form tag. It is done through the JavaScript itself. And JavaScript, we will use JavaScript to communicate with the server. That is, send request to the server as well as receive response from the server. Now, next thing what we have is that a special object in JavaScript. Now, this special object is known as XML HTTP request object, or mostly a short form is used XHR object, XHR XML HTTP request object. Now, if you remember, we had something in servlets, we had something HTTP servlet request class, or we create an object of HTTP servlet request. So it's the same way, here we have something known as XML HTTP request object, and this is a built-in object in JavaScript. Now, what the Ajax, that is asynchronous JavaScript and XML is, there are two things here, JavaScript and XML. Obviously, XML is not, with the XML, we cannot do anything programmatically, or we cannot implement any functionality there. The functionality is implemented using JavaScript. That is the communication between server. When a request is sent or when a communication is invoked or initiated with the server sends back a response. The response which is sent back will be in XML. So we have to use this XML HTTP request object to handle the communication. Now, obviously, as I said, the server program generate a response in XML. That is why we need the XML part. And then it's not only the XML that can be done. A response can also be in a plain text. It can also be in HTML. It can also be in JSON format. So XML is not a hard and fast rule, but we have to use JavaScript as well as XML HTTP request object. Then the content, once it is received, is handled using JavaScript with the DOM. Obviously DOM, because whatever data we receive, DOM is nothing but document object model, and we have seen in the second unit there, the entire HTML page is like a DOM tree, or the tags what we see is a DOM tree. So obviously when we get the data back, then we have to process this data using JavaScript, that is extract content from the HTML. And once we extract content from, we need to extract content from the XML, the data which we received, and then using the DOM, that is using a particular tag, we have to update the content belonging to that tag. So that is why a JavaScript is used to, with the document object model, is used to handle the responses which are received. Now let us quickly take an example of a JavaScript web page. Or let us call this as a simple HTML page. Now here what we have the complete, where is the pointer? Here what we have is these HTML tags, and then here we have a form element, form action. An action, we are not doing anything. Remember, an action, we are not sending anything. There is no resource applied. And we have an input button, some button where we click. Once we click, we send the we call a function send request. This is an explicit function. That is the function which we have written, that is send request. Now there is another thing over here. So a web page now will be containing only a button, and then there is another thing called as a div tag. Now this div tag initially has a hello as the as the text there, but this ID of the div tag is very important. Here the ID what we have given is the response output is the ID which we have used. So the web page has a button, and then web page has a division which displays hello as the text, and its ID is response output. Now a button, when it is clicked, we are calling a JavaScript function that is nothing but send request. Now let us look at the next slide here. This slide, where is it? Okay. This slide we have a JavaScript function. Now, obviously, both of the what you call the previous slide, this was a pure HTML part, and then the next slide we have is the pure JavaScript part. So this JavaScript we will see how to include inside this HTML. Now JavaScript, this is the send function which we have to write the implementation of. Yeah, this is the send function, the statement which we are using to call the send request function. This is the send request function. In the send request function, as discussed, we have to make use of XML HTTP request object. XML HTTP request object. This obviously, since it's an object, we are we have to create using a new keyword. So we will have in JavaScript, since we are writing this in JavaScript, var x HTTP, any name you can give it here, doesn't matter, equal to new XML HTTP request within the parenthesis or within the brackets. Now the next thing is, using this HTTP object, which we have created, this object of the type XML HTTP request object, there is a method, or there is a state actually attribute, which says on ready state change. Now there are certain steps to be followed actually. So let us first look at it. This XHTTP dot on ready state change is also a function. Now here, this function, it's a JavaScript function. This function has the XHTTP has attributes such as ready state and status. Now this ready state and status we will come back later. So from line 8 till line 12, this part will be handling the request which will be received. Request which will be received. So this part will be waiting till the request is received. But we have to send the response first. This part will be waiting for the response which we will receive. And for the response to be received, was not request, it's a response. We'll be waiting for the response to be received. But before we receive any response, we have to first send the request itself. So we will come back to line 8 till line 12 later. The only thing for timing you remember is that this part from line 8 to line 12 will be waiting for the request. Waiting for the response data. Now this line 13 is, we are opening a connection using JavaScript. We are opening a connection using JavaScript to the, to some resource on the server, and that resource will be sending us the data. So we have to use xHTTP.open, and this is the method get method which we use. It's the same like your what we have in your form. We have method get and post. The same way we will be using get method here. And the second argument what we will be passing is the URL. URL of the resource which will be present in the web server. In this case, we have the IP address so-and-so, and then some directory, and I have a PHP as an example. I have using a PHP part. And then the third argument will be true or false. Third argument is nothing but it is for whether the request response, or whether the communication is asynchronous or synchronous. So here true means asynchronous. It is asynchronous communication. Now you might be wondering, when Ajax itself is asynchronous, we say asynchronous JavaScript and XML. then what was the need of what do you call an argument, whether to say true or false, whether it is asynchronous or synchronous? The point is that the open, which opens the connection, it's not made only for asynchronous communication. It is also made for synchronous communications. So therefore, here we have to use true such that the communication is asynchronous or it is purely Ajax communication. Now then the last thing what we will be doing is we will be using XHTTP object dot send. This is the request that will be sent. So once the request is sent, what happens is, obviously from line 8 to line 12, this part was waiting for the response. Now the request is sent to this server, to this resource on the server. And once the request is sent, server will take some time and process the request and send some data back. Now what happens is, this on ready state change means the state is a request. Once the state changes to what you call response, that is receiving the response, then the waiting for this code will be over and this code will start executing. This code, very first thing it will check whether ready state has a code 4 or not. There are several predefined codes. In the next slides we will see what these codes are. Ready state is 4. That means a request is we are now able to receive the request, and the status is 200. 200 is nothing but these are the HTML response codes. Like 404 is resource not found. 503 is what you call internal server error, or so and so things. But 200 series or 200 code, status code for HTTP response means that response is proper. We have received the correct response. So once we have received the correct response, what happens is there is what you call like ready state, right? Status. These are the attributes like open and send. These are the methods of XML HTTP object, XML HTTP request object. The same way there is a response text. There is something known as an attribute response text, which will contain the text or the data received from this URL or from this resource. So what we are doing is, if ready state is 4 and status is 200, that is we have received the data, we are saying document.get element by ID response output. What was this response output? If we go back, it was a ID of the division, response output. So this response output, we are using inner HTML and assigning the text which is received by the communication, that is Ajax communication. Now, so what actually happens now is, when everything is correct, what happens is, once we receive the communication back, instead of hello, whatever we received from the this communication will get displayed at this place. So this is how we have to write a complicated program with respect to the Ajax. But remember, Ajax will be having a function through which we will start the communication. This function, we will first create an object, XML HTTP request object, and this object we will use on ready state change the function, and this function will see whether the ready state is 4 or not and status is 200. Then we will handle the data received, and this part from line 8 to line 12 will be waiting till the state changes, and then from request it will be in response state. Then we will create we will open a connection and send the request there. Now, this is actually a PHP program, which we will understand in the fifth unit. What this does is it will simply return the current date. Simply return the current date. So what happens is, this is the HTML page. We have a click here button, and this is the division tag hello. Once we click here, what happens is only this part will be refreshed. That is, the current date will get displayed. So not the entire HTML will be requested again. Once you click here, only this part of the data will get refreshed. So what do you call? So this is how the Ajax or communication happens, or this is how what we say is that this is how Ajax work. So now let me. Where is it? So this was the first part of introduction to Ajax. Now the next topic is what do we call pre-Ajax communication technique, and what do you call one more topic will be left out, which says HTTP servlet request object. Now let me before what do we call before I talk about the pre-Ajax communication technique. Actually, we will take up the pre-Ajax communication technique later. But we will talk about XML HTTP request object. So let me present this part. So now let us talk about the what do you call the open method of XML HTTP request object. Just now we have seen in the example program. This open method is used for communication with the server, and then as I said that XHTTP what do you call XHTTP XHTTP is the object, though we can give any name, but dot open. The first thing is method, which is get or post. The second thing is URL and the resource on the server through which we want to communicate. And the third thing is the asynchronous. This parameter, if it is true, it is asynchronous communication. If it is false, it is synchronous communication. Now, method, obviously I said get and post. URL is the server. Asynchronous, true for asynchronous, and false for synchronous communication. Now let us talk about the ready state. Just now we had seen that x http dot this dot ready state. Now ready state, it's a property used to check the status of the HTTP request. Now this we had a what is the equal to 4 as the value. This state, the ready state property, will have integer values. If it is 0, that means it is uninitialized. That is, the Ajax property or the request property, XML HTTP request object, is uninitialized. If it is 1, means it is open. If it is 2, means it is sent. And if it is 3, means it is receiving. And if it is 4, means it is loaded. So that is why we had 4 as the value. Ready state equal to this dot ready state equal to 4 as the value, because if it is 0, that means HTML object not yet created. If it is 1, means the statement which we had x http dot open, it is still opening the connection. 2 means the browser has sent the connection browser has sent the sent for the connection, communicating. Third means it is still receiving data from the server. And fourth means it is received, loaded. The data sent by the server has been loaded. So once the data is loaded, then only we will be able to process that data. Now, status is a HTTP, HTTP status codes. As I said, the status codes corresponds to certain messages there or responses from the web server. That is 500 response means there is internal error in the server. 400 responses means resources not found, especially 404 error, and 200 responses means it is the request is in a proper form. I mean, the data is proper. The request is in proper form. And then response text is again the property which I said, it is built in attribute there for the XML HTTP request object, which we assign to the diff tag. This contains the raw text from the response. So whatever response is sent or whatever data is sent from the server will be in response text. Now response text has a raw data. It's only the data. It will not contain any of the header information, that who sent it and so, all those internal details. And obviously it is unprocessed data. So whatever server sends, that data, it's a raw data there. Now, suppose if it is sent in a proper plain text, then there is no problem. We can directly display it. If it is sent in a an XML format or in JSON format, obviously then we have to parse the data and retrieve the contents. Now, this was a response text. We also have response XML. This will contain the response in the XML format. Then we need to use get element by tag name, and then each extract data from each tag. So these were the things about the XML HTTP object part. Now we are it is 12:24. I only have 5 minutes left now. So the pre-Ajax communication technique, which is an important topic, we will take up in the tomorrow's class. Now, any doubts or so far before we conclude? Any questions? Okay, no problem. If nobody has any questions, then we will wind up the class. Okay, there was a question here. And just a minute, let me take up. What is the procedure if the argument is false? Which argument are you talking about? The XML HTTP, XHTTP open method? Synchronous or asynchronous communication? Yes. See, it doesn't matter with respect to the lines of code or with respect to the function or the procedure we write or the function we write. If it is false, that is, if it is synchronous communication, even then the steps are same. The difference is that the only difference is that if it is synchronous communication, then what happens is all the requests will be loaded one after the other and in a queue. But if it is true, if the communication is synchronous, then there might be the other requests which already might have generated. So all these requests will work independently. So that is the only difference here. Any other question? Any other question? What is it? Then will the above lines of code still wait? Obviously, it will. See, waiting part is different. we are talking about synchronous asynchronous communication between different requests. But here the waiting part on ready state change, that waiting part is with respect to the current request. So you have to wait till you receive a response back from the server. So this what we are talking about synchronous asynchronous is between different requests, individual request. But here the lines of code represents one request, a single request. So whether it is you say true or whether you say false for synchronous and asynchronous communication, the on ready state function will still wait for the data to be received. So status 1, 2, 1 is open, 2 is sent, third one is receiving. After it completes the receiving, when the status will be 4, that is when the data is loaded. So it will still wait because data has to be loaded. Only when the data is loaded or data is received from the server, we will be able to process that data or display that data. So it will still wait. No problem, you're welcome. Any other question? If there are no questions, then we will wind up the class. Tomorrow we will complete the Ajax part. The program for Ajax we will take up later, because once we will, it's there as part of your what you call lab. So we will take up at the end the program, how to handle that Ajax part. We already have, we can use PHP or we can use JSP as well as we can use Java servlets. But let us wait till we finish the 5th unit, and then we will handle the Ajax part with respect to PHP. So we will take up the programming part at the end of the, once we complete the 5th unit. That will be a part of your lab record also. So let us, if there are no other doubts or questions, let us wind up. Thank you very much. You can join the next class.